Hey, good morning, everybody. Mike Shea at Transworld Business Advisors. I'm here with Adam Barnes, and Adam and his partner, Matt Wallace, just recently completed a deal with me on a company called Central Florida Metals. And I thought it'd be good to have Matt and Adam. I think Matt's going to probably float back and forth behind him. It's going to be more Adam talk about the lessons learned and what they experienced. So Adam, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let you kind of start off with a little bit of your background and how we started off on this journey together and how we ended up where we are.
Sure. So, how I ended up really getting connected with Shay, or with you, Shay, is I started a staffing company about 10 years ago. And about 3 years ago, I became interested in selling the staffing company, and in the process of kind of shopping around for a business broker to get that process done and completed. After, a few things to qualify my business to be able to sell it, I got in touch with Michael Shea. He was actually recommended to me from another business broker who I had met. And he kind of said that this is more Shay's wheelhouse, Michael Shea's wheelhouse. I call him Shay. I call you Shay. So that's how we got connected. And then Mike really kind of began to talk to me about buying a business more so than selling. And I hadn't really thought about things in that gear. I had been thinking, well, let me, get rid of this business that I had. But he began to kind of educate me to different industries and how some of them are so self-sufficient, for absentee ownership for someone who's looking to invest. And I kind of started to see investing from the other side of the fence, which is more of the business acquisition side, as opposed to, business liquidation side. So yeah, because that's kind of how we got connected.
You had a successful staffing company. You learned about getting the books in order. We got you a good CPA, got that all. And so once we got that cleaned up, getting rid of it really wasn't a priority, because once you have your arms wrapped around the numbers, it's like, I don't really need to get rid of it. And then what makes you a little different is you kind of went down this quasi private equity / group of investors to do this deal. So talk a little bit about that.
Exactly. And so I ended up keeping the staffing company, and then, started to just sit down with Mike and have conversations about different businesses that are available. And I had got really excited about one business, that was it was like a dog grooming business, and we were looking at the numbers, and the numbers looked awesome, and had an opportunity to meet the owner. And, I was looking at the business as something very positive and something that I could actually probably have some fun operating. And then, that business actually, in the time that it took me to begin to develop my investment team, we actually missed that deal because, in that process of developing the investment team to acquire it, someone else had jumped on it quicker than we could, got a little discouraged. And then, Mike had been mentioning to me that there was a sheet metal business for sale. And I was thinking, sheet metal? I don't know anything about sheet metal, like, what am I going to do with a sheet metal business, And in fact, when I first came to see the business, just walking around the office and kind of walking around the shop and looking at some of the operations, I still was kind of like, man, like, this just isn't my wheelhouse. How am I going to even figure this out? And so we continue to kind of shop.
You are an engineer.
Yes. Well, I have a background. I studied engineering in college, and I studied drafting in high school. I ended up graduating with a linguistics degree. So I do have a certification in AutoCAD, which computer-aided design or computer-aided drafting is a software largely used by engineers or AutoCAD techs to do drawings for engineers. But yeah, so, I didn't have a full, complete background in it, but I was familiar. And plus, my father runs an engineering firm. I was familiar with engineering. Things kind of went full circle after shopping other businesses. Mike kept telling me just how profitable this business was. Every month he was following up with me, showing me their numbers, showing me their P&Ls, because I was actually under a privacy agreement with the owner. And so Mike was able to release that information to me. And as I was keeping up with the numbers, I was thinking to myself, man, this is a really successful business. And Mike kept reminding me, you're just in here having fun building stuff. So I was able to actually, from the private equity standpoint, get in contact with one of my good friends who I went to college with and studied engineering with. And I talked to him and I said, hey, if I were to do this with you, would you do it with me? Could we do something like this together? And he runs an electrical engineering firm. which is somewhat relevant, to this line of work. And yeah, we just started taking the steps together. So, it was a long process. We started October and we closed in February of the following year. So you could kind of
and that was that wasn't necessary. We would have probably closed in December, but the SBA came up with some incentives.
Yes.
The seller was willing to kind of take a step back so you guys could get those benefits.
Yes, CARES Act 2.0, some provisions were put out by the last administration that really benefited people who were interested in investing and purchasing businesses, such that the federal government would make the payments for some of their loans. And so those provisions were to take place between mid-February and like maybe the end of April, somewhere to that effect, 2021. We were set to close, as Shay said, in December, but we held off on closing about 45 days so that we can take advantage of those provisions. And so, yeah, still a long process, but it wasn't as long as it needed to be. That was just so we could take advantage of that free money, 3 months of payments, and then also refunding. They're going to refund us back some of our closing costs as well. Which is substantial, very substantial.
Cheap. That's like 50 grand, I think, when we add it.
Yeah, it's probably around $50,000 that we'll get back. Which mathematically, when you think about it from just a mathematical sense, that was pretty much our down payment. Right. So it's almost like buying a business with no money down almost. If you just want to kind of compare apples to apples. So, but that was kind of how I ended up in the 180-degree turnaround from selling a business, we're wanting to sell a business to ending up buying a business. And so this business was cash flowing somewhere around $350,000 to $400,000 a year, net, that's after cost of goods sold and cost of operating expenses and staff payroll. And those numbers, obviously to myself and my business partner, Matt, the engineer I mentioned, look really good. So, we're thinking, man, $160,000 a year to $200,000 a year split between the two of us. Well, $400,000 split, $180,000 to $200,000 each a piece, to come in and operate something that's really kind of just self-sustaining, was definitely a good move. And so, we've been in it. We hit the ground running. We closed February 9th. We got to work February 10th. We came in, we learned the software. We, some of the existing shop guys, as well as the previous owner, is dedicated to training us. But we really learned how to run everything in about a week. So, in fact, Matt and I are here right now by ourselves running everything. And we had a great first month. I can't even really call it a full month because Matt and I really only worked from the 10th to the 26th because it was February, ends on the 28th. 28th is a Sunday. But in those 16 days, we billed out about $60,000 in jobs. Yeah. Which, was really double what anything that we had saw in the process of purchasing the business. So, and we've already got about $30,000 in jobs in the pipeline for this month. This is today's March 1st. So, so we're excited, man. And one of the things I know you wanted me to touch on a little bit, Shay. So the previous owner, his father started this company probably around 20 years ago. And he was a metalsman, if you will, and and had learned the trade and did that. And so this was kind of a family business. And then the son took over. The father retired. He went back to school, and believe it or not, in his 70s. And then his son Ryan, who's in his 40s, was running this business. And Ryan really kind of ran this business, kind of like how his dad did, kind of old school. People come in and give you a drawing, and you draft it up and plug it into AutoCAD and print it out, and then you send them an invoice, and then they pay you whenever they feel like it. And very paper ran kind of business, no website, no marketing, no advertising, no Google, just a community of clients of mechanical contractors who know who we are by virtue of us being kind of rare as far as the service we provide. What's great about that is that my background is actually, largely in marketing and sales. And I've done so much over the years with different businesses with search engine optimization and Google AdWords and, and all that good stuff to where, we saw this as, wow, we can only go up from here, right? You're taking over a business that's doing extremely well, that has no marketing platform at all, no website at all, no zero, not registered as a vendor, not registered with the federal government, not a service provider, not a MBWE, whatever. There's no, it's not, they don't do any bids or anything like that. And so I thought to myself, wow, I mean, we can now, I can take over and we can now bid jobs, and we can do marketing, we can advertise, we can email blast, we can just add basic marketing and advertising principles to this, and kind of, multiplicately increase in sales. And so when we've already been seeing that, the first week, we added an email blast campaign to our marketing structure, which I'd created. And we also added a new type of service. We added a new type of material that we're going to be providing. And we've actually already sent out about $12,000 in quotes on jobs for that new material, which is something that, our previous owner just didn't want to sell because he didn't feel like selling it, and we added it to our repertoire. So we're excited about the growth potential, and we're already starting to see it in just 2 weeks. So that's it.
What was interesting is when buyers look at stuff, they look at it through their prism of their experience. And you looked at it through what your experience could do to solve part of the business. And it's a fearful process because people are scared, right? You were able to go, hey, that's opportunity, that's opportunity, that's opportunity. And they're simple little things like,
right.
I create a website, create a Google My Business. I mean, you guys had a Google My Business page that he never had. And first that group comes in with $100,000 bid. And it was just, you have to be aware. They don't even have a sign on the door. I mean, it's silly. They were doing $750,000, right? Doing nothing.
Right.
The other thing was you saw it was a real niche business. There's only like a couple competitors, and you guys were able to kind of, jump on it right away. Lessons learned from SBA. What was the pain point?
Yeah. So pain points from SBA. Well, first off, let me just say that, Mike, you did a fantastic job with setting the expectation of how frustrating the paperwork process for this would be. So you did an excellent job. Despite the excellent job that you did, I was still blown away by how much paperwork this process was. I don't think there's any way to really get someone mentally and emotionally prepared for how much paperwork you're going to get into with going into an acquisition like this, working with the SBA. So I think that, the takeaways were just be patient, just understand that the people that you're dealing with the bank, whichever bank you go to, they are just checking boxes. They have a higher up who's telling them, ask the client or ask the buyer for this paperwork, ask the buyer for that paperwork. They've got someone barking at them from up here, and they're just really doing what they're told, going to you, then in turn, the buyer asking you for more paperwork.
Yeah.
In that shuffle of you constantly sending paperwork, albeit tax returns, albeit profit and loss statements, albeit whatever information, you need to send, they're going to lose things. They're going to lose documentation. They're going to misplace things sometimes. It's going to maybe be, stacked in their email address somewhere, days and days back, because this process is relatively long. And so, you have to kind of get accustomed to the fact that they're going to ask you for the same stuff sometimes more than once. And Mike, you did kind of warn me about that. You did a good job of warning me about that, but actually seeing them do that, ask for stuff 2, 3, 4 times, I was like, wow, I know I sent this to you. It got to the point where I would just re-forward emails to them, like, so they could see the date stamp of when I originally sent it. But it really just taught me to be patient, and with the process. And I was always kind of thinking about the prize, at the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
And be really, really organized. Like you guys, are crazy organized.
Thankfully, Matt and I are very organized. Matt came up with a great idea right when we embarked in this process. Matt told me to download an app called Box, which is kind of like a cloud storing app, and you can just store files in it. And so every time we were asked for a file, Matt or myself, usually Matt, would store it in Box, and we share the file. And so we could actually track in chronologic sequence every document we sent to the bank. So if they'd ask for something, we can literally search for it in Box, resend it, or let them know, hey, we sent this because it's been saved in our Box folder. So that was a great idea that Matt had that we implemented.
Yeah. I think people assume that the bank is like this linear organization, and they don't realize there's legal counsel for closing, there's legal counsel for seller, there's landlords we have to deal with, there's legal counsel for the bank, and you got to bird dog all that stuff to make sure it all gets done in sequence, and you've instilled confidence in them that, you know, everything's getting done. And then the lawyers, you know, sometimes things go down, or hey, the inconsistency of the federal government, the bank, and what the lawyers want, how one expects one thing versus another. We had a whole, you know, pickle conversation on the
Yeah.
DBAs, right? And
Right.
because you're dealing with people in functional roles who don't actually run businesses, they don't know. They're just looking for an apple. They're just looking
Right.
for that red apple. They've never seen a green one. So when you give them another apple, it freaks them out. So
Right.
the ability to have control
Exactly.
and bird dog all the lawyers and one bundle and stay on top of each one of them expedites the process. So when you get to closing, it's just signing and paperwork. There's no surprise.
Yep. You got it. You hit the nail on the head.
Well, thank you. I'm so proud of what you guys are doing there. I just made a note to chase that list of AC suppliers for you. So I'm going to hop on that again. I need to get that over to you.
Thank you. Oh, and one other thing that I wanted to say also in closing, one of the biggest things I think I've learned in this process is the more information you share, the more information the bank is going to ask you for. So that doesn't mean hide things from the bank. I'm not suggesting a buyer say, oh, I'm going to hide this, I'm going to hide that. It just means only disclose what you need to.
Yeah, what they ask for and not anymore.
And give them what they ask for and not anymore. You know, I'm in the process now of buying another business with Mike and with you, Mike, and you know, one of the investors in our investment group, you know, he's been sharing all this extra information, you know, about being an Army veteran and this and that, and and about stocks that he used to own and then stocks he has now and how he moved money from one stock to another. And he just was volunteering that information when it was never asked for. And now he's having to provide financial reports from his Fidelity accounts, you know, that show where he moved stock monies from crypto to here to there. And, you know, he's opening, you know, a can of worms that they really didn't even ask for. In fact, he owns a business that reports a negative earnings every year. And he earns no money from the business at all, but he mentioned this business on his income report. And that was kind of a no-no, because if it's not even income, you don't even need to mention it. But now they're requiring extra tax returns from him for that business, even though he has a full-time job that, you know, is really his true and only source of income.
People should think of it like when you're buying a house, right? So I'm going through that process. And when I went to the mortgage lender, because I'm an independent business owner, we looked at my wife's salary. They think that people who have a salary is safer. So it was, do we do us both or do we one? I'm like, if you can finance the house on one, you do it on one.
Exactly. If you can finance the house on one, do it on one.
Right.
Similar mantra with buying this business. Consolidate where your income's coming from. I think a lot of people who are buying a business, they get scared. They think, oh my God, I'm buying a business. It costs $1 million. I need to show as much income as possible, you know, or whatever. And the bank's not really that concerned with your income. They're more concerned with your credit score. They're more concerned with is the business cash flowing? Does it have the ability to pay? Does the business have the loan, the ability to pay the loan back? That's the big thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, they want to make sure you don't have anything crazy like on your record, like defaulting in federal loans and major criminal record stuff that leads to fraud and stuff like that.
Yeah,
don't try to add all this income up to
tell
make
your
it
broker
look like you make more money than what you actually make. Just be honest about your income and you'll get the deal done.
Yeah. And you know, before you submit something to the bank, tell the broker. So the broker can say, shut up or don't shut up, or that's pertinent or that's not pertinent. Like we had one, you know, I had one where a guy did something stupid when he was in college. He's 45. Tell me now, because if you don't tell him, it looks like you're hiding it. But if you tell me and we get in front of it, it's
exactly
same thing when you go to court. Don't hide it. Tell us, because we just need to have this. We have to have our ducks lined up when we present, and then it's not an issue.
100%.
Right, well, thank you so much. I'll send you a copy of this. All right.
No problem. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Do you guys have the website up and running? You want to plug it?
Sure. Yeah. It's cflmetals.com for Central Florida Metals. Check us out.
And what do you guys do?
We fabricate anything you can imagine out of sheet metal.
All right. All right, man. Have a good one.